We have Dr. Beyonce in the house.
Oh, you love my pronouns. You love my pronouns.
Oh, Scott, it's always a pleasure. I feel like we have, you know, I have now like talked to you or interacted with you a lot in a very short amount of time. We went from like not really engaging and kind of like watching each
I
other.
feel like we have an issue of being frozen is what we have.
What do we have?
But like, like we were kind of watching each other from afar and then suddenly we started like I did a live with you and then I feel like
Right.
now we're talking I'm like, I love your energy. Can you just be around me all the time?
I can. Send me your address again. I
Um,
mean, I totally thought we lived in the same state. I won't
so did
say
I.
what state because we both have stalkers, um, slash friends. And
I thought you were in my state. You thought I was in your state.
I did, yeah, yeah,
I'm very
yeah.
sad about
And
that,
then
but
we woke up this morning finding out that that's not true, and
Aw.
that was a hard morning for me. I'm not gonna
that was
lie.
a hard
I'd
that
love
was
to
a hard
process it with you. And I need one of those therapy hugs. One because I can't afford therapy, so I need something cheaper than
a hug.
therapy. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
like a hug.
I like that. That was
Yeah,
a good plug.
Something
yeah, yeah.
historic about people feeling like they're close to you, but they're really far away.
Mm,
Mm.
Oh, you're
The
going right into
You said
that,
you
aren't
wanted to
you?
process. I was like,
the
well, I don't
therapy
know how to
hum.
process it. I don't know.
Y'all are gonna get a lot of
What's
therapy
historic
hum
about this?
on
This
this
is
on
why I
this.
don't go on other therapists' podcasts. Just to be clear, my walls are now up. I just want to.
Well, Scott, I'm so glad to have you here and introduce you and all your amazingness to our listeners. We usually, because we are therapists and we like to know the background, we do kind of turn it
Yeah.
over and always ask what got you here, right? Like take us on the journey of how you became who you are and like what you're doing in this realm now.
Oh my gosh. I think a never ending need to do something fresh and new and
Mm.
keep the old at the same time.
Mm.
Do you remember that Girl Scout song? It might have, I was a Girl Scout for a year when I was younger. Um,
Make new friends, but
yeah,
keep the
the
old.
old
One
one
is
is
silver
silver
and
and
the
the
other's
other's
gold.
gold. I know they took it
I
from
don't know
somewhere
that.
else, but I know it from Girl Scouts.
Okay.
Okay.
And whatever hate
I
mail
love
you're
that you know
about to
that.
get because I was in Girl Scouts, enjoy it. Um,
All bring it on.
bring it. Yeah, that I feel like that was a motto I really internalized of
Mm.
like keep the old, but keep bringing in the new.
Mm.
And so like I would go get one degree in like dance, and then I was like, oh, I wonder what public health is like, and then I would was like, oh, public health is cool. I wonder what psychology is like, and I was like, oh, psychology is cool. I wonder what medicine is like. And a lot of money and education later, built by the fire of curiosity, here I am. And yeah, I always just had this passion and this desire to learn. And some of it certainly was motivated by the fact that I had extremely severe learning disabilities as a child and
Mm.
was told, that I was stupid. That back then they used those type of words back,
Yes, they did.
and was told I would never even graduate high school.
Mm.
Which, thank goodness I was so obstinate towards authority figures that I was like, oh, well, fuck you. I'm going to go get 5 graduate degrees. And I
Yep.
did.
Oh,
Um, they
It's good
said the
fuel.
right thing in that way. It's
Mhm.
good fuel. But so part of it, was motivated towards that of like, ooh, but really it was this constant hunger for like, how do we put all the pieces together in the world? How do we really understand what a human is? And like, I really like, I study anthropology, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting aspect of knowing what it's like to be human. And I think one of the final pieces I got to was like an actual internal embodied experience, which was so elusive to me as a child that I wanted to search for it in all these other ways from an academic lens and put it all together, hoping that then I would actually feel more like a human and less like an alien or a
Mm.
dissociated walking ghost, as I
Mhm.
talk about a lot in my book.
Mm.
I love that so much, Scott. It's so funny. Vanessa and I were having this conversation yesterday about
Yeah.
being the person in the family who has a lot of wanderlust and sort of like
Mhm.
goes from thing to thing, and everyone being like, oh, that person just is like, lost or whatever. Did you have a sense that like, no, I'm really clear. This is just me as a curious person? Or did you think there was something wrong with you that you quote wrong that you couldn't land on a thing that you were meant to do with your life? Do you know what I mean?
No, because I always kept the old. Like I'm
Mm,
an entrepreneur now and I have several companies, but I never have let go of my old companies. Even though people are
Mm,
like, you need to let go and move forward. I'm like,
mm,
no, I love seeing where things connect, the
mm,
correlative points in the world and or in my life. And to me, it's just really exciting. So I did have wanderlust. I've lived in a lot of different countries.
mm.
At one point for work, I was traveling 10 and a half months a year, and I was like, this is amazing.
Love it.
Um, and yeah, I never felt lost. I just
mhm.
felt like in process.
Mm,
Oh, I love that.
So
beautiful.
I still
Yeah,
feel like I'm in
I was
process.
just gonna say, I mean, aren't we always, right? I mean, hopefully, I don't know.
Yeah.
I wonder too when you say this idea of like searching for that embodied experience
Hmm.
as somebody who went to school first, right, to be a dancer.
Hmm.
How does that work? Because I feel like people who go and like pursue
Mhm.
dance at like a master's level degree,
Yeah.
have some sense of being embodied. But the way you talk about it,
Mm,
maybe you didn't. I don't know.
I mean, when I was like a ballerina, like there was a lot of ways you override sensation, you override
Yes.
mm,
pain. I mean, I used
Yes.
to dance in point shoes, and like it's
Hmm.
incredibly painful.
Hmm.
And I was really good at overriding that and being like, "It's okay, it's for the greater good," or some bullshit like that.
Yeah.
Which the beauty of codependency, right there.
mm,
Um, and yeah, I think that a lot of us can move without being inhabited within ourselves. Like,
mm,
certainly it
Yes.
makes a better dancer, but I mean, like the amount of things we did, including not eating,
Yes.
starving ourselves to maintain a body image in order to have the profession, like you can't be both present and do those types of things to your body um, at the same time. So,
Such a good point. My old roommate was
beautiful.
a Juilliard flute player, and so we knew a lot of the Juilliard ballerinas. And I remember even at like my early 20s, kind of standing back and being like, these women are
mm,
beautiful. And like there was a
yeah.
lot of the word that's coming up right now, right, is Gabor Mate's hungry ghosts. Like there was a lot of that
Mm,
feeling. Um,
hmm.
these beautiful hungry ghosts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
We were hungry. And,
Literally and
like,
figuratively, right?
I was hungry.
I was fucking hungry, and
Yeah.
most of my friends were eating toilet paper to satiate themselves.
Mm,
Like
Boy,
that was the snack of choice between rehearsals.
Jesus Christ.
yeah. I love that phrase that you said, a lot of us can move without being embodied, though. I think
Hmm.
there's something in that that just feels like such a broader conversation about the way that we move through life.
Yeah.
Just really profound.
Yeah. I mean, like we can go to the gym and you're like, yeah, I know my body because I work out. And I'm like, no, you know a certain decibel of sensation.
Mm.
Mm,
And like stretch and pain are high decibel sensations, and more subtle sensations like emotions, the texture of a felt sense
mm.
can easily be overridden by the decibel of sensation of stretch and pain and more sensationalist movement. So it's
Oof. Like
easy
sit
to
with
say
that.
like, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about, I think Vanessa was telling me that you have a background in yoga as well.
Mm,
And I was thinking about like how much when I first came into yoga, like I was all about like the Ashtanga and like the like
yeah.
really like, like
Mhm.
fiery, like
Yeah.
power yogas. And then over time, like something shifts where there's just so much of a need to come into like the slower pace and the
Hmm.
actual like feeling the sensations in a different way. And I think that there's a way that we through the fire and the excess
Hmm.
and the big sensations are like outrunning ourselves. Do you know what I mean?
I do know
Totally.
what you mean. Yeah. I've done I've done the Goldilocks principle of that too, where I studied
Mm,
more like a Yangar, which I would
mm.
literally we would hold a headstand for 10 minutes
Mhm.
or
Yes.
like a downward dog for 8 minutes. And it's like there's a lot of room to feel
Mhm.
or avoid.
Mhm.
depending on your cup of tea. Mine was a void, but also at times to feel.
Mm.
And after a while, like I was just so saturated and so inside the sensation so much that I like forgot how to move.
Hmm.
I forgot how to
Mm.
action the feelings and the impulses that existed and were arising in me too. And so like there's
Mm.
something about that's so important about being able to action.
Hmm.
That
I
sweet
love that.
spot, that
That sweet
that
spot.
Goldilocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was, my brother's here visiting. He's a huge football person, and we were all talking
Oh,
about
tell him
football
I say
yesterday.
hi.
I will.
We
I'll
go
tell
way
him.
back. We go way back to when we used to play football.
In between when you're a ballerina and a yogi, right?
I'm like, I don't know, you guys are New Yorkers. I believe you. I'm
It's
like, "This is
true.
real? This is true
The
story?"
Northeast, that football's in
Scott's
our
done a
blood.
lot. I'm like, maybe
I
not.
mean, this is very true. But we were having this conversation, like all the guys at the gym, and it's like,
Mm,
and this is why the NFL, so many teams on the NFL do actually implement yoga practices
mm,
as part of their actual training now, right?
Mm.
mhm.
I mean, this isn't nothing new. This has probably been the last 10, 15 years, but I think it's kind of what you're saying. It's like now they're probably looking at it from more of like a muscular science perspective, right? I'm sure they're
Fair.
not also looking at it from like the emotional depth that we are, but there is
Yeah.
something really important in that. Like if you're going to be the quote unquote best physically, it is important that you know the Goldilocks principle and
Yeah.
understand the highs, but also like how do I move at like a muscular level, at a fascia level,
Yeah.
you can't get that from just being in the gym lifting weights. You've got to be able to do the slower, more like the minutia. You got to get into the
Yeah.
minutia.
Yeah. There's such a range, a scale of movement and
Hmm.
attunement towards movement. Again, like if we're talking about like that range of decibel of like what's loudest to the brain,
Mm.
like what's the most distracting versus where there's more room. Like
Mhm.
we're pain is loud because it's meant to be.
Right.
Mm.
Stretch is loud because it's needed to be for us to really calibrate where our bodies are in relation to space so we don't get hurt. And so, the more subtle things evolutionarily are considered are less loud because they're considered less immediate and urgent, even though as like therapist, we know like that's some bullshit,
Hmm. How do
Yeah.
you
you know?
use that? I'm wondering. Like, I mean, I know a lot of people who are very somatic oriented in their work, and I would like to believe I bring some of it in. But do you find that
Mm.
all of this stuff, like when you're sitting with a client, yeah, let me go back to my original question. When you're sitting with a client, how do you bring forth all of that information and knowledge on the body into your work?
Well, I think it's about inviting people back to their primal language, which is the
Mm.
body. So when we come into the world, and even before we come into the world, so when we're still in utero, our language of processing is through movement, is through sensation, is through breath. And when we're birthed into this air world,
Mhm.
um, we don't lose that language. It's not till we're like 2 or 3, really, do we really fully transfer into our secondary language, which is like English or Spanish or Russian or
Mhm.
German, whatever it is. And it's like, again, what's unfortunate in our society is that we lose the old and gain the new. So going back to that Girl Scout song, whereas
Mhm.
what's actually really important is that we maintain our primal language, which is our primal way of processing, which is that sensation, our connection to our breath, our movement, and continue it as we add other ways of processing and expressing, which include our secondary language of like again Russian, German, English,
Mhm.
Spanish, etc.
Hmm.
What happens is when we lose that primary language, we cut ourselves off from a deep internal wisdom
Mm.
Mhm.
that then gets us in a lot of stuckness. So when I ask someone, oh, what's present in your body? What's present in your being? When you're talking about this, it's a way back into that primal language where emotions actually metabolize and move,
Yep.
as opposed to like, you can't talk through trauma. You can't.
Yep.
Sorry, loves. Like, we can't just talk our way through something. We have to feel our way through it, which
Mhm.
is that primal language.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so do you feel like there was a moment of reckoning for you where you realized that the way that I've been continuing to move through the world is not integrated with, like, that sense of embodiment that you're describing?
Well, I think what's funny is that I started embodiment and somatic practices when I was 16.
Mm.
I dropped out of grad school, a grad school class I was taking,
At 16?
and yeah.
Oh my god. But
As
just, like,
as one
as
does.
one does.
As one does. Okay. I didn't mean to
Okay.
say it
Was
like
trying
that,
to prove
but
a point.
now I'm blushing. I was just trying to because it
Can we just
really
not, like, skip over that? Like, you didn't just say what you said, please? Like, what?
I should never
The
have been
boy's
in that
wicked
class.
smart, okay.
I I should never have been in that class. It was an advanced biopsychology class. I was way over my head. I had
Oh my god.
I have misophonia, and a girl next to me was eating an unripe banana, and
Oh god.
I had a meltdown. I broke down in front of everyone in that class. I was 16. I like was also just like too young. I was overwhelmed by the material, and I just started crying. I got up and I ran out the door. And the only class that hadn't started in the university was a class in the dance department called Body Mind
Mm.
Centering. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck this is, but I have to take a class because I'm under a specific age where I could not be in school and
Mm.
have a certain amount of credits. So long story short, I got entered into this class on somatics and I was like, whoa, okay, this is what I
Mm.
want to do for the rest of my life. I was like,
Mhm.
this is what I've like, it was like a pathway back to being me, which
Mm.
even at 16, I knew, and I had still been dancing at that point too, but I just like, I grew up feeling like a walking ghost.
Mm.
I used to tell my parents as a kid, this is why they put me in therapy. I used to say, I don't feel dimensional.
Mm.
I feel like I'm flat.
Mm.
I didn't have the language to say like
Sure.
I feel disconnected from my whole
That
being,
feels
and
like big language though. I mean, I get a sense. I feel like
yeah,
if I was your parent, I would get a sense of at least what you were grappling with. But that's pretty profound actually to be able to grab this idea of like
mm,
I don't feel dimensional at such I'm assuming a young age.
yeah, it was like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Also, Vanessa, why weren't you my parent? Oh, the things I
Yeah.
regret in this lifetime.
Our relationship would be very different, Scott, if that was
It
the
would be
case.
both more weird and less weird.
That's true. Well, so okay, here we are,
Here
right?
we are.
Now you are somebody who has a litany of trainings and backgrounds. I was telling Danae that you run is it considered like a school or like a training center? Like how would where you bring in all of like the kind of
Mhm.
somatic heavy hitters and things like that to do the training?
I love that it's somatic heavy hitters. Like 8 years ago,
Mm.
like all of
I
us were
know.
like, nobody knows who we are.
I
And
mean, I
like,
like Peter Levine and like Vanderkolk, like Danae and I were just
yeah,
talking about this.
yeah, they're hot to trot right
Yeah.
now. I mean, like, Basil's been on like New York Times bestseller for what, like, I don't know, 2 years or
Mhm.
Get it,
something
Bessel.
crazy like that.
Mhm.
Get it, Bessel. I mean, and I love, you know, I love seeing the fact that they've worked so hard for so many years,
Mm.
pushing against a culture that was just not interested. And then all of a sudden there's just like this opening, massive opening, and like, this pedestaling of like the body is where it's at, and here
Yeah.
are these people. But anyways, I would call it a platform, a learning platform,
Okay.
an embodied learning platform called the Embody Lab. And one of our big missions is making the somatics and embodiment processes um, accessible.
Mhm.
And a lot of it's very expensive. A lot of these programs are 3 to 4 years, and we're like, okay, with respect,
Mhm.
can we also offer things that are more financially accessible, and more time accessible, and also accessible in a way that's not limited to psychotherapists? Like,
Mm.
when we have a big trauma program that's coming up with Peter Levine and the somatic heavy hitters, as we should say.
Mhm.
Um, and we get the question of like, "Hey, I'm a school teacher. Can I join?" Or, "Hey, I'm a dentist. Can I join?" And we're like, "Yes, Or I run a nonprofit. Can I join? And it's like, absolutely. This idea that trauma is everywhere.
Mhm.
Mhm.
There's nowhere we will go in this world. My sister's a school teacher. There is nowhere that any of us professionally can go where there isn't a presence of trauma. And so to think that trauma informed should be only in the hands of someone who went to school for 4 or 7 or 9
Mhm.
years just doesn't feel right to us. Like,
Mhm.
yes, there's a degree in which, therapists have this skill set, but a school teacher should know, just like a dentist should know, or
Mhm.
an HR person should know, how to be in relation to other people to where there is a frozenness, a stuckness of energy, or a missed opportunity of time space support where things have not had a chance to process and metabolize, and recognize that the sort of side effects of that doesn't mean that that person is fucked up or ill or anything like that. It means they're gently used human just sorting it out. and
Mhm.
and and yeah, so accessibility in that way has been such a key element for us.
Hmm.
Okay. I love that. I love the way you speak about trauma, Scott, and in trauma being everywhere. I think some of what I have heard in terms of pushback around the way that we are talking about trauma more
Mhm.
collectively now is like everything's trauma.
Mhm.
People are making everything trauma, and it's like, well, being human is traumatizing. Like there's like
Yeah,
the birth canal is trauma if you really think about what
Yep.
happens as we're coming
I
out.
remember that shit was
You
fucked.
do?
I'm still mad at my mom. Yeah, yeah, fuck yeah.
That's real.
No, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I think there's a danger in the Kleenex phenomenon
Mm.
where it's like, where we just go like, ooh, I stubbed my toe. I had trauma. Okay.
Yeah.
But, and this is where
Maybe tea
somatics,
trauma.
this is
Yeah.
maybe a little T trauma, or it's like, it's helpful to recognize the boundaries of trauma. And
Mhm.
one of our boundaries, or one of the boundaries I work with, is it past my capacity to metabolize and process? Are there not enough resources available to me
Mhm.
because of the culture I live in, or the social economic class, or my social location, or any of these pieces? It doesn't really, there's many reasons. So we can take the shame off the individual for that.
Mhm.
And I think that's imperative. But does it cross the threshold of, I can't metabolize and process this, and there aren't the resources, the time, the support systems to hold me now or later for some time to process that. And thus, my whole being and the environment I'm in and my culture, even, all try to compensate to do the best that they can. And in those compensations is where we get all of these survival strategies that are oftentimes doing the best they can, but are maladaptive to our like, for our own individual processing, for our relationships, for our process as a culture. So I tend to go, I stub my toe and someone goes, oh, that's a trauma. I might step back and go, if we didn't use the word trauma, what else is there? Oh,
Mhm.
I'm in pain. Okay, what's it like to be with that pain right now? Is that available to you? Or are there ways in which I can be of support, or others can be of support, to hold the space so that that what is happening to you can complete itself, that it doesn't get stuck or frozen within you?
Yeah.
Smart.
I love we have a friend and a colleague who's like a trauma researcher, and she teaches, college level
Cool.
courses and stuff. And a lot of what she talks about is it's exactly that. It's like we have to close the loop. And Levine talks about this a lot too.
Yeah.
Like it's physically stuck in your body, right?
Yeah.
Until you're able to like make sense of it, reenact it, close that loop. And I've said this before in trainings where I've talked to people and I've said, the old way of looking at trauma was, people would come back from war and we'd be like, well, you got to reenact it over and over and talk about it over and over and over
Mhm.
again. And then that's going to clear your trauma. And we now know that that is 100% not how you necessarily clear trauma. That's not helpful sometimes at all, actually. And it is more about the somatic experience and closing the loop somatically, right? But it's about like making sense of it.
Yeah.
right? Like outside of self, I
Yeah.
think is how she talks about it.
Mhm.
And do you see when I this idea of making sense of it? I mean, is there like a body and a mind that have to kind of come together to make sense of it? Does that make sense? My question.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to answer that in a sideways way. And if I don't
Yeah.
get to it, we would loop back the question.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, cool. One of the things is even though I teach a lot of trauma therapy. I like to actually start with the realm of stress because I
Mm,
think that it's a little more accessible uh, and important, and then we build up to something called trauma.
mhm.
Because I think one of the things with stress is I think it's incredibly I think we have let me say this. I think we're still in a very old school paradigm of stress that hasn't been evolving fast enough with what we actually truly understand of it, or what we originally understood of it, rather. Meaning,
Mm.
like, the media, and this is not me just dumping on the media now. I'll do it later. But just kidding. It's hot, it's sexy to talk about stress in a dramatic way.
Mm,
It will get the most clicks if I say stress is going to kill you. So
mhm.
you need to manage your fucking stress. And if you can't manage your stress, hire me for $1,000 an hour.
Yeah.
It's capitalism, and it's fear mongering
Mhm.
to essentially get people's attention around a very particular hotbed or hot subject, which is like
Mhm.
stress. And when we look at what stress actually is, which is our biological process of adaptation, it's not
Mhm.
very sexy. It's
Mm,
not sexy when that's the original definition of it, is it's our biological process of adaptation. And there's four main steps to that biological process. So for step one, this is the physiological, and it's physiological, psychological. So it is body mind in this way.
okay.
That's step one. We have activation. Yeah, we have some kind of a contact with what's called a stressor. And our
Mhm.
stress response is it's going to be our whole process of how do we adapt in relation to the stressor. So, step one, get activated.
Mhm.
Activation, which also is like a hot word to like shit on, is
Mhm.
paramount. If you are not activated, you are dead.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
Activation simply means there is a cascading of chemicals and hormones and good shit in your body to raise the amount of energy so that you can adapt. That's step one, called activation.
Okay.
Super important. Step two is called mobilization. Let's take that energy and do something. Usually in between is an impulse. Like, I have an impulse of how I want to be how do I want to adapt, how I want to respond. A baseball is coming at my head. I'm probably going to catch it, or I'm going to move, or I'm going to scream, whatever the impulse is.
Mhm.
And then I mobilize. I take that into action. So I take, again, that energy from stage one into stage two.
Mhm.
That's really important, because what often doesn't happen, and what we see later on as far as trauma, is we never get to stage two. We never mobilize the energy, and that energy is what gets stuck.
Mhm.
And that energy stuck creates all these physiological issues that take us out of homeostasis, meaning that we're no longer able to be a conservationist of our energy, our attention, and our emotion. And because of that, we have a fucked up distribution of energy and
Mhm.
emotion and attention. And that's what actually causes disease, not stress. It's the incompleteness of this stress cycle. So, which was step one, activation, step two, mobilization, step three, deactivation.
Mhm.
One of the things that happens in activation, for example, is our muscles tighten to even dislocate our bones slightly to
Mhm.
desensitize our nerves. Pretty fucking cool.
God, our
Like, if
bodies
you
are
get
fucking
punched, like,
amazing.
fucking
I
amazing.
know.
All that tension you feel in your jaw when you quote unquote get activated, it's to dislocate slightly so that you become desensitized in your nerves. So that if someone punches your face, you can keep going and adapt. Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, that being said, in deactivation, we go from more of a, heightened stage to more of a feeling stage. Yeah. And a feeling stage is when we go rest and digest, but it's not just food, what we're talking
Mhm.
about. It's actually metabolizing and processing the feelings that accompany the process of adaptation.
Hmm.
So again, if we never get to that rest because we're in this urgency culture, we're never given the time, space, permission, we also never get to process those emotions that
Mm.
came along with it. And then this last stage, which, you know, none of us know that much about, it's called recuperation, where we rebuild the energy
What is that?
resources. So, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Where we rebuild the energy resources to keep being in this process of adaptation.
Mm.
And when that process keeps getting thwarted, then we're in the realm of trauma.
Mhm.
Or
Wow.
in yeah.
I'm just thinking, like, personally, I'm thinking about being 25 and going into
Oh,
yoga.
yikes.
Hey,
I remember
hey,
you at 25.
I
Okay,
was
we'll go there. We'll
I
go
was a
there.
little angry, but, other than that, but,
I
going
loved your Avril Lavigne phase at 25, your Alanis Morissette karaoke nonstop
at
25-year-old
listen,
self. It was great.
25 was not Avril, that was more like 1920, okay? I was past that by 25. I'd already gotten rid of the nose ring and the, like, bleached hair and the studded belts by 25, okay? But I did have a phase. No, I'm thinking
I
about, like, going into yoga at 25 and thinking, like, how I'm gonna use the word addicting, but how addicting it felt so quickly to me. Um, you
Mhm.
know, growing up in a high stress environment, high stress, parent, living in New York City, and then I had a high stress job in advertising. I mean, it was just high stress, basically activation constantly. And
Yeah.
the idea of like quote unquote relaxing was just never something that even I don't even think I was ever talked to about, honestly. And then at 25, going in and starting yoga and getting so addicted to almost like the high that I would get after the come down and the shavasana, and just that like you would leave and you would be floating. And I had
Mm.
never experienced that before. And just in the way that you're talking about it, I'm starting to understand like that was so much of my body being able to go into the step 3 and step 4 that I had never
Mhm.
experienced prior. And I'm also wondering, and I guess you can maybe this is a question for you, can somebody experience a step 3 and a step 4 of a prior activation, right? Which is really the hope of the trauma work. So
Yeah.
that we is that how we complete that loop in
Abs
the processing, I suppose, of the trauma?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then I'm gonna throw in a tricky little thing too, Vanessa, is, you know, did you have to work your way up to a certain decibel again
Mhm.
of in the yoga, in the movement, in the like the toughness of the action in order to quote unquote deserve or be able to go into the rest? Did we have
In the
to
beginning,
push
for
ourselves?
sure.
Yeah, yeah, for
Right.
sure. I know
Now
that.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't, now it's like
No.
what Danae was saying. I the kind of movement I crave is very different than the kind of
Yeah.
movement I craved 25 to maybe
Yeah.
30, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think what so many of us find as we go into meditation or we go into yoga or we go to a into a bathtub or we
Mhm.
go into a
Like a
garden
sauna
is
or garden,
a
yeah.
sauna is how fast we interrupt our own process of peace, our
Mhm.
own places of stillness, our own possibilities of rest. And for me too, like I had to, in order to rest or deserve rest, both on the emotional, mental, and physical realm, I had to exhaust myself, burn myself out to get to what I thought was relaxing, which was really
Mhm.
just collapse.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to learn the difference between deactivation, restoration, and then collapse. I thought collapse was those two things, and it turns out it is quite different.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm just like
I'm
I'm,
watching
I'm
your wheels
processing
turn.
what you're saying, and I'm fascinated because I'm fascinated by things I've heard people say lately about the ways that we recreate trauma and that we
Mhm.
recreate
Mm,
those that like sensation of chaos, and that can
mhm,
be something that is soothing. And I watch that play out sometimes, and that like I think people will speak to it as like like really struggling with being bored and what
Mhm.
like boredom is like relaxation
Mm.
or peace or like maybe like
Yeah.
that thing of like sitting in the bathtub and like being present with myself that you're describing. And I don't even know like what my question is that I'm just like I'm really like processing things that have come up with clients that I'm like recognizing as what you're talking about as I'm hearing you say it. Do you know what I
Well,
mean?
and Scott,
Yeah.
would this
I know.
be, I mean, is this
Yeah.
what was your catalyst to write the book? Because what we haven't talked about yet actually
Mm.
is you have a book called Addiction to Drama.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
and I'm wondering, was that part of, is this like the catalyst for that book? Kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, like as a kid, I would always say, "I'm bored. I'm bored."
Mm.
Mhm.
And what that was code for, what I didn't know that was code for, was it's too scary to relax and settle, and there's not enough stimulus. I
Mhm.
need more stimulus. And so my way of addressing it was to go seek or create the stimulus needed to avoid what would otherwise be present in the space where just underneath the boredom, which was the trauma I never processed, which was
Yeah.
the gap of where I was of absolutely not present in myself and had dissociated and all the things stored there in its place.
Hmm.
And yeah, it was absolutely a catalyst. And we have this really cool thing called a relaxation reflex, which is we start to relax for some of us, and there's a whole cascading process, and we then go, oh, our breath deepens, and then we have a little more weight, and there's vasodilation, so there's more blood flow through our body, and there's this whole process. But we also have something called an activation reflex for some of us,
Mm.
which is we start to settle or find a little peace or stillness, and something inside says, danger, danger.
Mhm.
And we'll go seek or create or manifest a story or pull in a memory or think about work on Monday or whatever it takes to avoid that settling. Because again, in the settling, we come into that third stage of the stress response, which is the rest, digest, deactivation, where we're more vulnerable to the emotions that we most likely have not processed.
Yes.
It This is kind of blowing my mind because, like, the way that I process so many things, because I work primarily with couples, is that I see things relationally, and I'm just so
Mhm.
struck by, like, how often I'll be sitting with people, and it's like you want drama, like, it's like you
Yes.
want to be in chaos. Like, it's
Yes.
like you don't like, this could be so much easier than you're making it, but what I'm realizing is we're, like, defending against that a lot of times because
Mhm.
it's like there's a discomfort in something that feels healthy or that feels
Mhm.
peaceful that
Yes.
I can't stay there. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I
I'm
know
like,
exactly what you mean.
wow, that's
Yeah.
yeah.
And, when chaos is the relational currency for feeling love,
Yes.
that's
Mm,
also we're
Yes.
gonna fucking reenact it.
yes.
Vanessa, you know what I mean.
Oh, I
We
do.
grew up in the same household.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm your mom. What are you talking about?
yeah, mom. Thanks for that. But
Oh,
My
it's like
goodness.
I grew up in chaos.
yeah.
Mm,
I grew up in a lineage of chaos. And, to the best of a lot of people's capacities, that is what was there.
yeah.
Um,
Mm.
and to be seen and to be heard, I would do things like fake being sick and I don't mean like, oh, I would just fake stuff. I would actually then feel it. I would
Yeah.
Mm,
manifest it. I would create a certain level of, I would call stress, to feel diseased.
Mhm.
mm.
And that would attract tension. Oh, wait, you'll actually give me more hugs when I'm not feeling better than when I tell you I got a B on my test? Okay, well, I'm gonna go fail more classes. I'm gonna go stir shit up with my sister and fight more because at least some attention it feels better than maybe a dismissal or not enough presence in other places.
Mhm.
And so,
Yeah.
fuck yeah, I'm gonna reenact that currency.
Hmm.
And also for those of us who have a propensity for drama, which is surprisingly a lot more than not,
Mhm.
or all of
Yeah.
us. I'm just gonna fucking say it.
Yeah.
If you're listening, you got an addiction to drama. No, you have some propensity because we all do. If you've ever interrupted your own peace with a story, a thought,
Hmm.
if you've ever walked down the street and realized you were rushing for no reason, that is the same mechanism. If you've ever overscheduled yourself and then complained about it, that is the same mechanism. Yeah, so
I
we
feel
all
personally
have this way
attacked.
of avoiding. And you are being personally attacked with love. With love.
Okay,
And it's even if you've ever like been obsessed with an unavailable person
Oh,
when
God.
there are 50 million people who would be hungry to be present with you, that is like you cultivating that.
I said I didn't want a therapy session, okay? Stop talking about my current relationship.
We're all attacking each other right now. That's
I see you, you see me is what I'm
Yeah.
getting.
yeah.
I love
No, but you're absolutely right. It's like, what are the ways we just don't allow for that suddenly and that ease in our lives? And it's so much. We have such sophisticated ways and ways of projecting it and blaming it on other people. Like, oh, there's always something against me.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a common phrase. Oh, it's always something. Boo, that always something is you.
It's you. You're the common
It's
denominator.
you're the common denominator.
Mhm.
And it's hard to see that because we are not only protecting the ways in which we avoid stillness, but protecting what's underneath it.
Mm.
And so this is a lot of protection mechanisms helping us avoid and avoid the
Mhm.
underlying trauma. And so drama is a great way of doing just that. We stir the drama to avoid the trauma.
Thank God you out here, Scott, because a lot of people need your support.
What do we
I'll
do?
put myself in there as well.
Same. I mean, what do we do? Like, how do we? I mean, obviously, Danae and I have our thoughts, but like this idea of specifically that, like, how do we become aware enough and start to build the tools geez, get rid of this addiction to drama that we have?
Oof, it's not easy
Yeah.
because there's a lot of things of like, I know for me, it's like I used to work in the arts as one of my many jobs. I used to direct operas and perform. And when I was leaving, that is one of the professions I left for some time. And I remember going, ooh, and one of the reasons I left is because it was a constant feed of drama and chaos and crisis and stress. Like, if you want that, you go work in the arts. If you want constant judgment and fear of what comes next, and if you're looking for anxiety, that's a profession I would recommend. And I was done with that. In my late 20s, I was like, I need a break. Like, I'm gonna kill myself. I'm gonna die under this amount of tolerance I built up for stress, and all the things I was doing were so high level to then get some type of hit from it. That's such a quintessential thing about addiction is we get a tolerance level, and we don't think, like, I used to think that my tolerance level for stress was my capacity to hold it. What I didn't realize was I was just numb until the point where the threshold was hit, and then I would feel something which would make me feel alive. And so, like, leaving the arts, leaving these places of stress, I was like, oh, I'm not going to feel alive anymore. I'm not going to matter anymore. I'm not going to be important, because all of these things that were really like childhood feelings of like I'm not important. I'm going to be left aside and abandoned and die, really would come out whenever I would start to give up the drama. Like, oof, if you're not in the arts, if you're not coaching everyone else's problems, if you're not being the rescuer, if you're not being the stirrer, whatever it is, then what is your purpose and your value in this life? And you might as well be dead. That was the internal thoughts that would come. So it was so hard to give up. I really truly had to let myself die. And I mean that both literally and figuratively. And I had an experience where I died in my late 20s for a few minutes, and it was like a reset. It was a huge fucking wake-up call of going, this was too much. I OD'd on all, not physical drugs, but the emotional drug of stress. To which point I literally went into cardiac arrest. And on that happy note, let's figure out how to fix this shit.
Well, I say that to people. I mean, when I'm doing the codependency work,
Yeah.
the phrase that I use frequently is doing the thing that's so uncomfortable
Yeah.
it makes you wanna rip your skin off or so
Yeah.
uncomfortable that you literally wanna throw yourself off a building, and I always say, I'm like, "That sounds dramatic, but it's not." It will
Yeah.
actually feel like doing this thing, like setting a boundary, even though it
Yeah.
sounds silly when you're in the moment. If that's your bag, if that's the thing you
Yeah.
struggle with and you know that's what you gotta, work on, it's gonna feel like you're gonna die if you do it. And
Yeah.
that is your
Yeah.
body. I mean, your body really makes you feel like, if I do this thing, I will be annihilated. And
Yeah.
so part of it is really moving through and doing it so that on the other side, oh wait, I'm still here. I
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
die, right? I can do
Yeah.
this thing.
Yeah.
But even now, I know even for me personally, 15 years into doing this work, there are still things like that that bring up a feeling of, I can't do this
Yeah.
thing or I'll die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And when it's resting or settling or finding ease that makes you feel like you're gonna die,
Hmm.
oof, it's so tricky.
Hmm.
It's so tricky. And so many of us have that on such a level that we don't recognize until we
Right.
pointed out of like, hey, I'm just curious. Like, I know you were just relaxing for a moment in this beautiful garden. Why are you talking about your mother-in-law all of a sudden? Or why are you thinking
Mm.
about work tomorrow? And we have to kind of point it out in that way. I think one of the first things that we do to help us heal is to recognize where are we revving ourselves up or getting revved up. So where are we creating more charge or activation than is necessary? So it's like, oh, do I need to be thinking about this story right now? And what is it doing in my physiology? Oh, it's making me hot and bothered, just like a stress response. But I stirred that. I created that.
Mm.
Or I'm in this argument online. I'm in a troll fight. Is that what they're called?
Hmm.
I don't actually go online. Troll fights? I don't know.
Sure.
I'm
Works for me.
doom scrolling or like
Yeah.
I'm like leaving notes, and I'm like, like someone left this really awful note the other day to me, and I started writing a response, and I was like, what's happening in my response? And I
Mm.
was like, oof, no, thank you. I'm not going
Hmm.
to do that to myself. I'm not going to do that to them in the response. And it's not necessary. It's absolutely not necessary. So I'm walking away from all the ways I'm revving up. I'm walking away
Mhm.
from the unnecessary stories I'm creating, because drama is the unnecessary turmoil in our lives created through exaggeration and intensification.
Mm.
Yeah. So all the ways I rev myself up or get revved up. And when we can start to recognize where that's happening, we can start to stick a wedge in between the moment, the impulse to do it, and the action of doing it. Because in that space in between is where we get closer and closer to ourselves, the very thing that's being avoided. And then when we start to be able to attune more towards ourselves,
Mm.
underneath the reflex that are inherent in this addiction to drama or attention or attachment to stress, then we start to dive into the things that have been avoided. So that's when we
Mm.
start doing the trauma work of going, ooh, let's finish or complete that stress response that never happened. Let's metabolize this feeling that no one was around to hold before.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then we have a few more stages of like reestablishing what is relationship.
Mm.
Hmm.
Because when we have an addiction to drama, one of the things that isn't true across the board in all my research is relationship is such a depository, a place to stir that drama up to avoid oneself. And so that becomes part of the relational
Mm.
dynamics,
Yeah.
our
Mhm.
jealousy, our fighting. First of all, being a couples therapist, God bless you.
I say it to her all the time. God bless you for it.
Fuck, I would never. And to all those couples out there who I've worked with, sorry.
Sorry, not
Um,
sorry.
I'm
Y'all
sorry.
were
Same,
some
same,
drama.
same.
Y'all, I love the drama at the time, but I'm done with that shit.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. I feel like it's like watching a tennis match, and I don't know, like I very much have an ability, not in my own life, but as I'm
Yeah.
watching people's drama, to not like feel like I'm in it with them.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
Vanessa will talk all the time about how like it brings up a somatic response in her. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know, I don't have it. I just like feel like it's fascinating. I'm like, oh yeah,
But we need
I see you,
people
I
like
see you both
you,
activated.
who have that ability to keep that distance, and there could
Yeah.
be a whole myriad of reasons. It could be just how you're wired,
Disassociation, probably.
your ability to dissociate. I
Yes.
mean, but in this regard, it's
Yes, that's real.
necessary, and for whatever reason, like maybe just Scott and I don't have that kind of ability. I mean, but we need it, couples obviously
That
need it.
trauma response that I have. Yeah. That's
Well,
right.
I used to be
Use it to your
so
benefit.
I used to be so specific when couples would come in, and I would look at what was their own natural pacing and sense of time, and is
Mm,
there on the Venn diagram of time signatures? Because again, I was a dancer. Like
Mhm.
I was registering their sense of time. If there was in the Venn diagram any overlap of time signatures, how fast they move, how fast they process, their speed of talking, all of those, I would work with them. If there was no overlap of time, I said, I can't help you. And I think you're fucked. I would say it more nicely than that. But that was like my filter, which
you
is
are
like,
brilliant. Your mind is just like,
Wow.
I'm like, it's
Why do you
fascinating to
think
watch,
that is? I mean, do
actually.
you think if like you can't find
That's
that overlap, then like it's just a constant, it's never gonna like
it's
work out?
yeah.
Yeah,
To
it's too much
me,
chaos.
like relationship is about
Too much chaos, yeah.
space, like how we navigate space and how we navigate time. And I know like that's
mm,
really didactic and it's boiled down. There's a lot more about vulnerability and love. But when you grow up very dissociated on the spectrum, things are easier, like time and space to be able to observe than connection and feelings. And
Yeah.
so yeah.
yeah, but even if, as you say it, if we're like seeking harmony, like there's something
Yeah.
in what you're saying that feels like musical, and
It
there
is
is.
musical.
It's like you're not like in that space of attempting to be in the dance and create
Mm,
music with the other person if
yeah.
you're just in that space of like demanding that you be heard. So like actually as you speak to it, it makes a lot of sense to
Or if
me.
you can. I mean, to your point, Scott, like what
Yeah.
you said, like if you grow up, like on the spectrum, or there are certain
Yeah.
abilities or inabilities that we might have that it's no
Mm,
fault to the other person or to ourselves, but we just might not be a good match in that way,
mhm.
Yeah.
no matter how hard we try, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And part of my own interest in this lifetime has been expanding my range in a lot of ways, but expanding my range of time, being more comfortable with like a slower time, being more
Mm,
comfortable with a lot of space, with someone who had a lot more anxiety when there was too much space between me and someone else. Growing more comfortable with space has expanded my range as a practitioner, but certainly will one day be expanding my range as a lover.
It's true.
Vanessa.
yeah.
Um,
Don't look at
I'm
me. I'm
just
your
saying your name
mom.
to make it awkward again. I just like to stir shit up.
She has
Still
a
got
lack of
that.
compassion for those who need a lot of closeness. Yes.
I'm a
I
little,
see why you said Vanessa.
I'm a little avoidant, so you might
You
just be
can
getting
call
from
her
me.
out.
This is actually, it's no longer cheaper than therapy. The show is called The Call Out Tower.
That's what's up.
That's what's up.
It's called the shit stirring hour is what it's
The
called.
shit story an hour. It's true.
So good.
Uh,
Well, I feel
Well,
like
we
we
could have
could
you
stir
all
shit
freaking
with
day
you for hours.
doing shit.
I'll come back anytime to stir some shit up.
We love it. Well, Vanessa, I heard a rumor that you might be in LA, so we might have to try to wrangle you for some shit stirring while you're here and maybe make a live
It's
out of
true.
it or something.
It's true. We might all be in the same state at one time.
Let's
I
do it.
love it. Well, you are a treasure, Scott.
Oh,
I'm
you're a
just
fucking treasure.
I'm so excited to meet you. And I this is one of those episodes where we gotta tell people at the beginning to have a pen and paper because I didn't have one. And there were several things you said that I wish I could have written down. So I will when I go back and listen. But thank you for all of this wisdom. We have a lightning round of questions that we ask all of our guests.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Are you
I
ready?
love the intensity of a lightning
Are
round.
you ready?
Are you ready?
I have healed my addiction to drama, but not all of it.
All right. So the first question, I'm like forgetting the first question. The first question is, who have been your greatest teachers, mentors, people who have impacted your path up to this point, whether they're people you know or just their work has really impacted you?
Wow. Is the lightning round of it that you just asked me a lot of questions or that I have to speak really fast?
You have to speak fast.
Okay. Fuck. all of you, both of you, all of you who are listening, I love
Just
you.
pop
You're the
out.
best. I got Bonnie Bainbridge Cohn, who created this
Okay.
thing called body mind centering, has been one of the biggest teachers of my life. And that was so when I was 16 and had to go into that class, it was a class called body mind centering. And so like her work was like my rebirth into this world.
Yeah.
And I think it's incredibly powerful and nuanced and complex. And she's been, I then did the training program with a 10-year training program with her starting at 17 or 18. And so like I grew up with her
Yeah.
in my rebirth. So that's who, I feel like I should say a lot more people. No, I'm gonna stick with that and just
Let's
say
just
there
stick with
are
her.
other people. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna stick with her.
Beautiful.
She deserves the
Okay.
credit.
She deserves the credit. Okay, so this idea of, people talk about this idea of flow, right? Like that thing that
Mhm,
you could be doing where you blink your eyes and 6 hours goes by, just being in that
mhm,
very present, authentic state. What is that for you? Where do
mhm.
you find that?
Mm. I used to do flow research as an academic,
You
so I love
didn't.
this question.
Of
Of course you did.
That was and Mikhail
When do you
Csikszentmihalyi
sleep
behind
is
me.
the question, Scott. Do you sleep
No,
ever?
I do
No.
not sleep.
No, I do not.
I get really mad when I hear podcasts about how important sleep is, and I'm just like, you know what? Mind your business.
Yeah, I don't sleep that much either. I'm like, yeah, everybody's different. Please don't judge.
Don't
Like,
make
you don't
me
know.
cry.
Shaming me for my sleep or
Listen,
lack
I'm a
thereof.
Taurus, and all I want is sleep, and I have a 3-year-old. That's the only thing I don't get.
Oh my
Okay.
god.
Okay, it's not about me. I'm feeling my
It
feels
is
right
about
now.
you.
Back
Wait,
to
do
Scott's
I
flow state.
do I get to ask you a lightning round of questions
Nope.
after this?
Nope. Flow
Oh,
state, go.
I hate not being the host. Okay.
Aw.
Okay, flow. So traditionally, I will say what traditionally is and then what it is for me.
Okay.
Like the traditional idea is that when the amount of effort and the amount of skills collide,
Mhm.
and it is this effortless effort.
Beautiful.
And that's a great definition. I think that's a very westernized deconstruction,
Mhm.
where to me flow is re-entering into the rhythms that are innately part, that are, whether we think about it as quantum physics or from a non-dual Kashmir Shaivism tradition of in the yoga lineage or yoga philosophy, whatever it is, it's like there's an innate pulse of life. And flow is being willing, vulnerable, able to coast within it, to ride the waves, the fluctuations of life within the pulse of it.
Mhm. What is
So
that for you, though?
beautiful.
What do you find yourself doing when you're in flow? Writing,
Asleep.
talking, reading,
No,
sleeping?
I definitely not sleeping. I think I honestly, without sounding absolutely conceited, I find more and more my life has been that state. So I think in
Mhm.
the beginning, it was more of a spice where I'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, this is what it feels like. I feel dimensional
Yeah.
for one. I feel belonging. I feel
Yeah.
connected. And I feel like a certain rightness, not in the
Mm.
world, fuck that, but a rightness
And myself.
in me in relation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it to me, there's a way in which I used to imagine, it was an imagery practice I used to do of like, okay, so I would spend a lot of time feeling my own pulsation, my own rhythms, my own breath, if that's an
Yeah.
easier place to start. And then I would attune my attention to nature or to the pulse or timing of the room. That's easy to do as a dancer when you're looking at all these time signatures.
Mhm.
And I imagined like a doorway where I would walk into it, where I would become part of it without getting lost in my own individual experience.
Mm.
And so like I would do that as a daily meditation of like walking, literally entering into the slipstream
Hmm.
of life. And
Obsessed.
so yeah.
Love
You
it.
want to slip into the slipstream together?
I'm gonna use that as a pickup line.
Yeah, no,
Or, you
I
know,
that was just was. I don't know what's
that
not
is
clear
what.
about that. Awkward.
Well, shifting.
Yeah,
So
majorly shifting for our third question.
this
Okay,
one, what
cool.
breaks your heart, Scott?
Ugh.
I know, from slipping to.
What breaks my heart? It's such a good question. Kind of everything, but I like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Hmm.
First of all, I like being able to feel things. Having spent so much of my life not,
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, um, like a friend meeting didn't happen. That kind of breaks my heart. Like,
Hmm.
like I was really longing for that connection and didn't happen. I'm not devastated by it, but um, I think it's just like there's something, a little ping that reminds me that I'm alive.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And I appreciate that after feeling numb and dead for so long, or like a walking
Yeah.
ghost. Also Pixar movies. Fucking Pixar movies.
Same.
On airplanes. Do not do it to yourself.
Done it. It's horrible. Sobbing, middle
Oh my
Oh,
seat, by
God.
myself, everyone looking at me as I'm watching
oh.
an animated
I feel
movie.
like you're legitimately Vanessa's soulmate.
Vanessa, we know this. I remember flying back from a job, like when I lived in Indonesia for some time. And I remember it's a long ass flight,
Yes.
okay? And I just lined up the Pixar movies. I felt like I was working for so much, and I didn't have time to process. And I was like, maybe I just need a really good cry. And I just lined up like 5 Pixar movies and cried for like 12 hours straight. People kept coming over. They're like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm great. I'm
You're
feeling
like,
alive.
it's just Coco. It's so
It's
sad.
just Coco. My
Oh my
heart is
God.
my heart is
See
reopening."
today? He is me.
I
um I have stopped watching Pixar movies, but I was on a flight,
It's
I
addiction to
think
drama.
last week. It is my addiction to drama. I just need to feel alive, okay? I need any sensation. You want to get into a fight? Fine. You want to have a nice conversation, as long as there's gossiping. No, just kidding. Um I was on a flight, I think a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and I watched like a, a movie. Like, it was probably like I don't know, it was a Marvel movie. I don't even
Mhm.
remember what the movie was. It's not important. Again, crying. I mean, I've
Crying.
read the
Me too.
studies on it. But fuck, that breaks. So airplane movies break my heart.
Got it.
beautiful.
It just took me
Same,
20
same.
minutes to get there.
Same. Okay, we're gonna end on this one.
Oh
What's
shit.
your What's your favorite
I'm
food?
sad. Well, first of all, what also breaks my heart is endings.
Oh,
Oh, okay. My favorite food is whatever Gwyneth Paltrow is drinking.
I
I
mean,
really like bone
we all want
broth,
a little bit
and
of that.
what I wrote a little article for Goop, and I was hoping like it would stir into like them emailing and being like, "Hey, do you want to do a podcast with Gwyneth and just drink bone broth?" To which the answer is yes, world, I do.
Yes. Yes.
Manifesting
Her
into reality.
her performance in that court case also, had I watched it on an airplane, would have broke my heart. Open with such laughter.
Uh,
Am I
so
allowed to
good.
say all this? I'm gonna say all this. I'm
You
stirring some
I
say
shit.
mean,
it all.
Gwyneth, call me. I want to drink bone broth with you. I love bone broth is the answer.
Okay.
Um, just ginger with bone broth. It's my favorite food. I
oh my
don't know.
God.
I mean,
I'd love to say
get
something
it.
like greasy fried donuts, but I wake up and I crave bone broth. And maybe it was
Fascinating. You're
because I
talking
was
to two people
vegan.
who don't eat meat. That's fascinating.
We're like
Look, I was vegan
fascinating.
for
You
20
crave
some
bone,
years, and
All right.
now I crave bone broth.
and now you just crave bone broth. Oh my God.
Oh,
I
Scott,
love
please
it.
come back again.
Yeah, this isn't goodbye.
Anytime.
This is until next time because we're
Part
not done
one.
with you.
Part one. Part two will be next. We'll let you guys know when he'll be back.
We'll let you know. We'll send up a red flag flare.
Yes. Tell our people where they can find you.
It's yes, people can find me. I have a couple stalkers, so whenever anyone asks me that, the first thought is them. No, it's okay. It's handled. It's under
Okay.
control.
Okay.
Okay.
But
Scaring
for
me.
those of you who are wanting to find me
Appropriately.
appropriately, no, on Instagram, I'm at Dr. Scott Lyons. On I don't think I'm on Twitter. I don't know
It's
what
not
that
even
is
Twitter anymore.
actually.
It's called X.
It's
It's
called
okay.
X. Okay, you'll have to tell me the story of
I
that later.
wouldn't
Yeah,
I'm
know.
so out of the
we won't go there right now.
look, folks. I'm not on Twitter or
Good.
X or
Okay.
XXX or OnlyFans. You can't find me on any of those
Nope.
anymore. But I am on my website, which is www. It's important to put the www in there
Yes. Yes, it
sometimes.
is.
drscottlyons.com. And I hear I have a TikTok page
Good.
where my niece puts videos about me on
Aw.
line.
I love your
I
niece
think.
already. And your book, give us the full name because I didn't do the subtitle.
By the way, my niece is very smart, and I had to change names and people's positions, or they couldn't be known in my book, which is called Addicted to Drama, Healing the Dependency on Crisis and Chaos in Yourself and Others. So it's not just about our own personal addiction. It's for all the people who are around you who are addicted to drama, which is everyone as well. So my niece called me about 3 weeks ago and she goes, I read your book. I see where you changed my name in the book. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And your mother signed a form that said you can't sue me. So I don't know what you're talking about. She is a
Amazing.
smart little, brilliant human being who
I
is
mean,
maybe dropped in the book a few times with her own addiction and drama because she's a teenager.
listen.
Yeah.
I feel like there's
That's
some
real.
genetic component to that brilliance.
Oh, I passed it on. Wait, no, that doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean.
We got it. We got it. Scott, thank you so
Well,
much.
Thank
yes.
you, my friends.
Cannot wait to read it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And
Yeah.
I look forward to when we get to connect again. Part
Yeah.
Yes.
2.
Part 2. Part
Absolutely.
deuce. All right, y'all.
Just
Thanks for listening.